I'm 28 and I don't have my shit together, so I can't be that judgy. But I know that fascism is bad. Like, oh, what radicalized me? Having basic fucking empathy radicalized me. Ronald Reagan is in hell, waiting for heaven to trickle down. This is the last time I'm recording this fucking thing. I'm going to just be cool and calm and confident, and it's great, and everything is fine. Hi. If you're new here, same. If you're one of the 15 subscribers I have waiting for me to continue my Elden Ring playthrough, sorry to disappoint you, but there's just been too much on my mind that I really wanted to talk about. With everything going on, it is too difficult for me to continue on like business as usual. The main content of this video is from my stream last week Tuesday, so I believe that was the 28th of January. Some information in the whirlwind of executive orders and blatantly unconstitutional actions has since changed. However, that didn't make this feel any less relevant to me, so I still wanted to share it with you guys. I ended up discussing a multitude of topics that still connect with what's going on and are relevant to society as a whole, frankly. Truly, this stream was just a much needed release for me, a chance to be vulnerable and honest about how I've been feeling with everything going on. I feel like as this administration continues, it's only going to become more and more important for people in disenfranchised groups, people like me, to share their perspective. So why not now? This is my chance to try and create some semblance of community, and I hope it's received well. I guess we'll see. At the very least, this will give you guys a very authentic introduction into who I am as a person. So I know that currently we are being flooded intentionally with chaos and news that's scary and has everyone panicking. And believe me, I feel it, truly. My hope is that we can get through it together. Quick note, I did want to let you guys know that the way I had the audio split for this stream isn't the most ideal for a video, but this wasn't exactly my intended purpose when I was doing that stream, so something I will keep in mind for the future, just in case. I also wasn't the most consistent at being clear when I was responding to chat, so I'm sorry if it's a bit ambiguous for you guys. Lastly, there's a lot of swearing, as you already saw, so YouTube isn't going to like that, but it wasn't like this was getting monetized anyway. If you clicked on this video and gave me a chance, even if you don't make it all the way through, I appreciate you. I'm hoping this ends up being a good play in the background while you do other stuff kind of video. Obligatory intro is now done. Here's the rest of me rambling. With everything going on in the world, it feels a bit difficult to just get on here and play a game. I don't know how to act like I'm not as concerned as I am. And so just like sitting here and starting a game and being like, hi guys, what's up? And acting like everything's chill and normal felt too dystopian because things aren't chill and normal. Yeah, it's large scale issues, not personal. I mean, saying it's not personal feels a bit untrue as well, because it's not like these things don't impact me personally. And I mean, I'm concerned for myself. I'm concerned for people that I care about, and it's scary. I think the one that I mean, there's so many that get me. All of it is bad. But what did I see this morning? The pause on all federal grants and loans and like federal aid, essentially. So like that's 90-day pause for people getting housing assistance and food stamps and what else? Refugee resettlement programs, like all these things that are huge and important. Not to mention like just students not knowing if they're gonna be able to go to school next year. It is a nasty surprise to wake up to, and I think it's part of why like I'm seething right now. Like I'm just so upset. And I just like I said, it's difficult to get on here and just play a game like everything is normal. It's tough to just not fall into feeling helpless and despondent and angry at all the people who made this possible, which I mean, I am angry. I am angry. But there's a small part of me that has to hope that they just didn't know what they were signing up for, which I desperately want to be comforting, but it's not comforting anymore because it's not like the information wasn't there. It was blatantly printed. This is just straight out of what we knew was going to happen. Not taking the time to learn about it isn't an excuse that I'm willing to take anymore. The information's there. And I have personally very little patience for people who choose to willingly be uninformed. because I don't have that luxury. I am a queer black person in this country. I don't have the luxury to not know what the fuck is going on. Seeing people not try makes me so upset. You're right. You're right. I I'm caught in this duality in my head of just like sometimes I hear people talk about their frustrations on either sides. The anger I hear often is very valid of just like it's hard to sustain yourself and your family right now. People feel isolated and scared and just want people just want to be able to live and take care of themselves and their family. And that's it. That's what everyone wants at the end of the day. People are being fed on either sides different reasons as to why their problems exist in the first place. And that's where that divide comes. It's like, okay, well, we both agree this is a problem. Here are our vastly different solutions. And the solution is apparently, let's just say, fuck you to all disenfranchised people. That doesn't make the 99%, doesn't make your life any better. It just makes the 1% richer. Obviously, I think about this a lot, guys. I don't know. I'm half tempted to just like pull up the Project 2025 website and be like, read through it. Because again, this is just what's happening is straight out of the playbook that they outlined. This is not news. This is not new. This shouldn't be shocking, especially to his voter base. There's also a website that a YouTuber I follow pointed out. It's called democracy2025.org, and it's just like keeping track of all the executive orders and pending lawsuits and actions being actively taken against them. I don't know. I'm angry. As much as I can also respect the people that are like, I just need to get the fuck out, I think it's important to acknowledge that being able to safely get the fuck out is a privilege. Even be able to sit there and just joke about that as an option. Get out, I mean, as far as like leave the country. Like people are like, I'm just gonna leave. I'm just gonna go somewhere else. There are people actively being forcefully removed from the country that want to be here. And people will be like, I'm just gonna leave. I hate it here. Like it just feels very I can't think of the right word right now. Mass deportation as a whole, the amount of people I see cheering it on and supporting it, the end to birthright citizenship, like, or the attempted end, I will say, I do think that's going to be an interesting uphill battle for this administration. It has been upheld by the Supreme Court twice now that this is constitutional, birthright citizenship, and like the clear rights outlined in the 14th Amendment. So I'm curious how this is going to go. I wish I had like written down some points I actually want to talk about, but I am just rolling through it right now. Understandable, it's pretty fucking bad currently. Half of America doesn't seem to think so. And that's what I can't fucking understand. Like, I'll admit, I have been a raging leftist for all of forever, and I exist in a bit of an echo chamber due to algorithms on the internet and the people I surround myself with. Because, hey, believe it or not, I don't necessarily want to spend all day with people who think that I shouldn't exist and have rights. But anyway, um, it's still shocking to me when I see people loudly defending the bullshit and people actively being harmed. And I'm just like, I don't get it. I can't get it. I try to stay open and I try to understand because that's how you get people to be open to others and expand their own viewpoints. But I can't fucking get it. I'm upset and I'm angry. And I think you have a good point about some people being too far gone. Elon Musk fascist saluting on TV. And people still just being like, no, it was a Roman salute. Oh, he's autistic. He's just a little weird. He didn't mean it. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck are we saying? Are you kidding me? Like, okay, if you genuinely think that's okay, go do that on the street. Do you feel safe going to go do that on the street corner in any major city? You feel safe going to go do that to your boss? Here, take a picture of you doing it and post it on social media. Do you genuinely think your job would be safe? Do you think you wouldn't get punched in the fucking face and wouldn't deserve to be? Like, and yes, history repeats itself. Yes, this has happened, and like we have seen these atrocities over and over. And yes, we will overcome. And that doesn't stop me from feeling just an unfathomable amount of rage. I think as a people, we are more connected than we ever have been. And by that, I just mean we are able to see more than we ever have. Information is everywhere and generally accessible, but we can get into the complexities of that because not everyone has the same opportunities to even just like the internet, electricity, etc. But in let's say the country we're in, at least for the most part, the information is there and accessible, and to just see how separated we are. I think what makes me the most angry is seeing people who grew up, let's say, very similarly to me, similar socioeconomic status, reading the same books, watching the same movies, in the same schools, and like just come to such vastly different conclusions on how the world should be, who matters and who doesn't, how to treat others. Like, I don't get it. I can intellectualize about it all day, but like in my heart of hearts, I can't understand it. I keep seeing this trend on TikTok and it's like, what radicalized you? What radicalized you? And I'm just reading it and scrolling through it. I'm just like, what radicalized me? Having basic fucking empathy radicalized me. I don't know how to tell people that you have to care about other people, that you should care about other people. That's the whole point. It's just I don't know how to tell people that they need to give a shit about other people. That that's the right thing to do. I don't think that should have to be discussed. To me, it seems pretty fucking obvious. Oh man, I'm getting like zone minutes from just talking about this. What do I do if I run into someone with a different viewpoint who thinks they're right and I'm wrong? Is it about any like particular topic that you're referring to? Or like, do you mean about this whole thing? Because it's not like I am incapable of having conversations with people who have differing viewpoints than myself. I think part of how I have started feeling, especially in the past few years, I'll say, not even just past few months, past few years, is differing viewpoints is like how to handle, like, let's say we all agree that homelessness is a problem. Differing viewpoints would be, oh, I think that we should take empty houses that are currently not in use and make those livable versus like, oh, well, I think we should use this budget to make sure that communities have warming shelters that are open year round. Not that that's differing viewpoints, differing solutions on how to solve a problem, but we both agree that this is a problem that needs to be solved versus I think homeless people should be taken care of, or I think they should just be allowed to sit on the street and die. Like, that's not differing viewpoints. That's cruelty. You can equate that to so many different things going on right now. Like, viewpoints are about, or at least in my opinion, the conversation should be about how do we solve this problem that we both agree is a problem, not whether or not it's a problem in the first place. Currently, it just feels like a lot of the conversation is around whether or not people deserve basic human rights and decency. And so then it makes it very difficult for me to engage in these conversations, I'll be honest. Well, yeah, why try to save the world when we can just plan to save ourselves? It's kind of the message I get from people with the money and power to make changes. And I think you're right. I think we have a real hoarding problem amongst super wealthy. I don't think it's ethical for anyone to be a billionaire. You're never going to spend that money in your lifetime or your children's lifetime. You could be helping people actively and you're not. There's no ethical way to become a billionaire in this society. You had to take advantage of someone, whether that's people directly under you, whether that's exploiting cheap labor in other countries and exploiting the fact that there's less labor protections and they are actively being harmed. Making decisions like that are how you easily line your pocket, and that's not okay. And I don't understand why we have to explain to people why that's not okay. And I think a lot of people who support it, who aren't in those shoes, are like, well, maybe someday I'll be able to be rich like that too. Why is that your goal? If I get off my high horse for a moment and step back again, I would like to think a lot of it just comes from a desire to be able to protect yourselves and the people you care about. And I can't fault people for wanting that, but I can and will fault people for the extent they're willing to harm others, the lengths they will go to accomplish that goal. I think that's something we should be critical of. I don't expect everyone to be as radical as I am. That's fine. But again, I expect people to give a shit about other people. I expect people to mind their own fucking business and not impose their own moral beliefs on others as far as what people do in their personal life and everyday decisions. It doesn't impact you. Just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean you have to do it. As long as everyone is just consenting adults and whatever the fuck is going on, mind your own goddamn business. And that can apply to so many things. I don't get the mindset of I morally disagree, so no one should be allowed to do it. Like, people just need to mind their own fucking business. It's weird. It's very weird to give this much of a shit about what people are doing in their own personal life. That goes for, I mean, like, okay, let's be blunt. That goes for my views on reproductive health and abortion. That goes for my views on trans rights and their decision to make, trans people's decision to make, the ability for trans people to make decision about their own bodies. That includes the right for queer individuals to get married. That includes so many things. Just like, it doesn't matter to you. You don't have to do it, person who disagrees. You're not saving anyone. If anything, you're actively dooming people to an early grave. Who hurt me? Give me the name and address and everything. The US government. Hold on, I'll pull up an address for you. If you want to go to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., there you go. If I go MIA again, you guys will know why. My anger is mostly that I live in a country where we knew this is what was going to happen. And everyone was like, this is fine. This is what we want. Like, it's hard for me to just accept that people are cool with this. And like, what really adds to it for me, which is not, it's not funny, but it's ironic and bittersweet, is that the 10 poorest states in this country are deep red states that voted for this to happen. The people who are going to suffer the most are people who willingly voted for it. And I still feel bad for them because, like, it's just, I don't want people to suffer regardless of their political opinions because I think it's bad. Just point blank, people shouldn't have to suffer. People should be allowed to live. And that shouldn't be considered radical. We can go on a whole separate tangent about that. But knowing that these individuals desperately need those resources, and for some reason, we're tricked into believing that these rich ass politicians and billionaires gave a shit about them and would make their lives easier. I don't want them to suffer, but I hope at the very least they are waking up and realizing that they have been deceived. That is my one hope in all of this, is everyone can go, oh, they don't give a shit about us, and get on the same page. Yay, class consciousness or something like that. So I'm angry about something I can't change. I don't know if I agree with that. I'm angry about something that I wish more people were talking about. Hard to change. Yeah. Hard to change, I think, is more accurate. I think it would be ignorant of me and doing my ancestors a disservice to say that these are things I can't change. I wouldn't be where I was if people didn't believe that they could change shit. If people didn't work hard against all odds. Things aren't perfect now, obviously. Things have never been perfect. America has never been great. Let's just get that right out of the way. Impossible to change isn't honest or fair to the people who have suffered for me to be where I'm at. There's a quote in particular I like to keep in my head. This one says, I cannot hide my anger to spare your guilt, nor hurt feelings, nor answering anger. For to do so insults and trivializes all our efforts. I think that is important to think about in this time. Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not hurt and angry and disappointed in what's happening in the world just because it makes other people uncomfortable. People should be uncomfortable with what's going on. What's going on is a problem. Ah, there it is. It's an Angela Davis. I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. That's the one I was trying to find. This is nothing against you, individual who asked me this question, but like, people watch Star Wars and Harry Potter and Hunger Games and insert a billion sci-fi films here. People consistently consume content where the oppressed rise up against their oppressors in whatever means necessary, take the freedoms that they have an intrinsic right to because they exist as human beings. And everyone's like, yeah, I get it. I totally understand. I'm on board. This makes sense to me, but like, lack the ability to critically apply that to real life. Sci-fi has always been an allegory I mean, fantasy as well, but like sci fi in particular, part of why I love the genre is the fact that it analyzes society and oftentimes is used as a warning for potential futures and outright fascism. How did people still become willing parts of the machine? I understand that we live in a capitalist society and people need to survive. And some people have to make decisions that in different circumstances maybe they wouldn't. And I'm not giving people a pass for doing things corrupt and immoral. I already had my rant about my opinion on billionaires, but like, how did you miss the point? There are things we have to do to survive every day, and I'm not going to sit here and police and nitpick some of the small decisions. But you have a choice of where your money goes. You have a choice of the people you vote for, the content you consume, the posts you make, the people you surround yourself with. Like, have really been trying to hold myself accountable as well, and I hope other people do too. Of like, for example, I ended our Amazon Prime subscription. So I'm like, I can't say I'm ethically against these things and then continue to let my money repeatedly be taken in support of people who don't give a shit about me, are actively donating to campaigns that will hurt mine and people I care about civil liberties. Like, the willingness to give away small everyday comforts for what you believe in is important. Think about like the bus boycotts and all the things people were doing during the civil rights movement. Like, those weren't convenient or easy, but they were necessary. I'm 30 and still don't have my shit together. I don't mean that kind of shit together. I mean like morally shit together. I'm 28 and I don't have my shit together, so I can't be that judgy. But I know that fascism is bad. Like, oh, you hear about the memo that would pause. Yeah, that's where we all started with this hippie. That's why I'm angry today. That was, as I said earlier, the last sprinkle on this shit Sunday. How can we be okay with this? How can we just willingly take, like, all this is taking funds away from vulnerable people who need it desperately. Why aren't we questioning our billions in military spending or foreign aid to countries that don't need it and are committing genocide and atrocities? Like, but no, no, no. We need to take away food stamps. We need to take away student loans, which we can have a whole conversation on how higher education should be free another day. But how is this going to fix it? How does this fix anything? We got to acknowledge that part of it is current late stage capitalism keeps everyone in two, one, two, sometimes even three jobs, too emotionally exhausted to organize and have these conversations. I don't know. I touched on this earlier, but I think a lot of the people in these positions too think, well, I just have to work hard enough, and then I'll be one of those people. I'll be that billionaire, and everything will be better for me and my family. And that's just not how this fucking works. Class consciousness, not in this century. Everyone took up the arms against each other's classes. Yeah, because oh my goodness, all these brown people are the reason that I can't afford groceries. Like, shit, what was I gonna say? I should have started the tangent earlier. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Where was I going? It'll come back to me. I know it. If I just tap my head, the thought will come back. Something about the class consciousness. Brown people groceries. Brown people groceries. Okay. I know where I was going. Thank you. Um Related to the whole mass deportation and bring the job back, bring American jobs back, bring these companies back from overseas. The jobs aren't fucking coming back, guys. Not until we penalize these corporations for seeking the cheapest and easiest option. Yeah, we can put tariffs on China and here and there. They're just going to move to the next cheapest country. They're just going to go to the next disenfranchised group of brown people and exploit the labor because it's cheaper. American jobs, American workers are expensive because we have labor rights. And you have to treat, to a certain extent, American citizens with a certain level of respect and pay and et cetera, et cetera. Like, there's a baseline here. Is our baseline where it should be? No, but I'm going to put a pin in that for a minute. At the core of it, American employees are expensive. Keeping labor in America is expensive for good reason. They're not going to bring it back. They've made too much money. We've allowed them to just skirt around this for too long. and hoard their wealth, and they don't want to stop doing it. They're not going to bring the jobs back. I could work every day for the rest of my life and I will never even be close. You could work every day for the rest of your life and never even be close. And at the end of the day, as I've said several times in this rant so far, the majority of people aren't striving to be filthy fucking rich. The majority of people just want to be able to afford groceries, take care of their family, own a home, maybe get to go on a vacation, a family vacation once a year, once every other year. People just want to be able to live, go to work, have work life balance, and not stress about whether or not they're going to be able to live and make ends meet. Bare minimum. And that's too expensive. That no, we can't. Me, Mr. Billionaire, I can't give away just a tiny bit more. I need to make these shareholders happy and show record after record profits every single year. But I'm going to keep laying people off. I'm going to keep cutting wages. I just, it makes me very upset. The only reason I'm not in debt right now is because my father died early, unexpectedly, and happened to have some life insurance money that I then used to pay off a mountain of debt that I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get out from under. And I feel privileged in a gross way, even just from that I was able to get out from it. And it makes me sick to my stomach to think that that was the only way I was able to do it. Like, I would rather have my dad than be debt free. At the same time, I feel like I have to be thankful for the fact that I was able to do it. A lot of people wouldn't be able to leave something for their family because they're just striving to get by in the first place. I feel this nausea in my stomach of just like, I need to be grateful because now my credit score is this. Ooh, yay. Oh, cool. I got to pay off my used 2017 vehicle. Awesome. I'd rather have my parent. No one should have to be in that kind of position. But I still feel like I need to be grateful because it's more than other people have. And then to just like hear small loan of $1 million. I don't think people just want it enough. People aren't working hard enough. Like, fuck that. I don't know. I think I see a lot of people talking about like the great wealth transfer and oh, boomers and dying out and Gen X and millennials are here to inherit all this wealth. And I'm like, I'm sure all these people would rather have their family around. Why does someone have to die in order to be able to take care of yourself? All that being said, one, I'm sure that, like I mentioned, a lot of these individuals that are passing away have nothing to leave for their family as much as they would like to because of the society they've had to live in. Two, because of our abysmal healthcare system, these individuals probably, if they did have something, now have nothing because we don't care about taking care of the elderly or chronically ill in this country. So that just eats up all of the money. Let's not get into the death industry and how much it takes advantage of vulnerable people and how expensive it is to just pay for someone to be dead. Never watched Ask a Mortician, Caitlin Doty on YouTube. I haven't watched her in a while, but I remember being obsessed with her content. And I have a couple of her books, and just she speaks on this and does a really good job dissecting how predatory the death industry can be. At the end of the day, making it full circle for a minute, coming back to my rant about how like American jobs aren't coming back, it's always profit over people. And because we live in a society that has allowed profit over people to be the norm and the standard, we are unfortunately just living how it was meant to be. I don't know how to say it. Like things aren't broken, things are functioning according to how we have designed them to. People just need to acknowledge the fact that they were designed in a shitty way. Maybe these racist capitalists early 20 somethings who founded the country didn't have the best ideas. Crazy. Like it's almost as if they even said the Constitution needs to be re-examined and modernized over time themselves, that this is relevant to us now but will not be relevant forever. This is how I am. I am such a party pooper. Call me basic, but I also consider doing podcast stuff, so I have another outlet to rant about this and it doesn't entirely take over my Twitch. Thought it would be nice maybe to have some separation and be able to bring other people, not just myself, to talk about it. But I think, especially right now, too, with the overwhelming amount of censorship that's going to be happening, like, I don't know if anyone else saw this. Part of at least what I saw when I was looking into what came out last night with federal spending is they're reanalyzing criteria for where the budget's going to go. So, like, to elaborate on that, it was talking about for student loans and like federal budget for schools, eliminating woke programs in order to receive funding. Again, we can't be surprised. This is straight out of the mandate for leadership, but people need to be learning about these topics. And if you can't do it in school, people obviously aren't going to fucking just go seek out the information. We can see that currently. Not to mention all the corporations willingly dropping their DEI programs. Like, okay, thanks, Amazon. Thanks, Meta. Target, I was pretty surprised, but not surprised to see Target. I mean, their whole reaction to their Pride collection being taken out of stores for employee safety. I didn't forget about that. No one, like, I just want to, like, emphasize no one is holding a gun to these companies and making them drop these programs. They are willingly following suit, bending the knee, licking the boot. You know, they are willingly dropping them preemptively. It makes me not to get like too, I was about to say not to get too serious when this whole conversation has been serious, but like I am someone who has always known that I want to have children. All these changes in the past year have made me question that. Like, is it ethically responsible for me to bring a child into this world not knowing what it's going to look like? Like, I already felt that way a bit because of climate change in general, but actively watching my own rights be stripped back, it makes me so scared for someone who doesn't exist yet. Like, how am I meant to teach them and protect them? But at the same time, I hear that and I think, what if people throughout history felt that same way? Where would we be? That's actively how you snuff out groups of people, is creating that fear and insecurity. And then they win. This duality of thought in me all the time. It's very exhausting, you know? Yeah. Angry, grr, society, government. I don't know, maybe now's a good time to do what I said I might do, which is just like literally pull up their mandate for leadership and go over it with you guys. I don't think the ruling class is a partisan thing. I think the ruling class is a wealth thing, as we've talked about several times. Inflation, tariffs aren't how you fix inflation. Consumer pays the cost of tariffs. Drug overdose deaths continue to escalate. I think what would actually help with that is comprehensive health coverage, education, decriminalizing drugs so that people are getting the resources they need to actually get help with their addiction. All while globalist elites in Washington awaken only slowly to that growing threat. Moreover, low income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. This is just signaling the same like rhetoric of Reagan and the welfare state and welfare queen, and just take this back to what we were saying earlier in the conversation of, I don't understand why I have to explain to people that you should give a shit about other people. As someone who has had to be on social programs at certain points in my life, it is one, incredibly strenuous and confusing and difficult to get through the process of even just applying for these programs, and being able to apply for them in the first place comes with a certain level of access, being able to get to the offices that you need to, having internet access in some instances, having a phone. For example, when I got laid off and I was on unemployment, you have to certify every 2 weeks that you are actively looking for employment. Actively looking for employment means that you need to be able to get around because we live in a car centric society, or be able to get online to send in resumes, because who's really going out and handing out resumes in person or applying in person? Then I need to be able to let them know that I applied. So again, that means either getting online or be having access to a phone call, or having access to the ability to go in person and show them, here, look, here's the jobs I applied for. And that was just to get a measly amount of money. Initially, I ran into issues trying to get unemployment because for some reason they had another person's social security number tied to my account. So they called me and said, we can't give you health coverage because you are receiving social security. And I said, I am 26, 27. I don't remember how old I was when I got laid off. I promise you, I am not receiving Social Security. I'm not eligible for that yet. So then they had to fix it, admit it was an error on their part. And then when I look at the breakdown as far as like whether or not I was eligible, I remember it saying if I made more than what, 25,000 a year or something like that, then I would be ineligible. And I think it was like 30,000 ish if I happened to be single with a child. How the hell is that enough to support myself, let alone a child, with the current costs? And you're telling me I wouldn't be able to get assistance if I made that much? Government dependence they are referencing, it is not enough to sustain yourself, let alone a family. And then I got put in that position of, okay, now I have this health insurance. I have chronic conditions that require being able to have access to a doctor and to medication. Once I get a job that's above a certain threshold, a very low threshold, I won't have access to this anymore. But I'm also not going to be making enough to be able to afford the doctor and the medication on my own. And so then you feel stuck. So I'm like, well, I want a job, I need income. I also need this medication and be able to go see a doctor. Just a perpetual cycle of feeling stuck. We brought together hundreds of conservative scholars and academics across the conservative movement. Together, this team created 20-volume, 3,000-page governing handbook containing more than 2,000 conservative policies to reform the federal government and rescue the American people from Washington dysfunction. When I think of this paragraph, I think of the fact that we know through various historic examples that the powers that be will make shit up to justify whatever the fuck they want. I'm thinking eugenics as an example. Just because something is legal and scientific, don't use that to make it seem like I'm anti science. I have a point here. People will create what they have to in order for something to seem logical and true. We can't ignore that historically, in order to protect white supremacy and capitalism, this has taken place numerous times. Mandate for Leadership was published in January 1981, the same month Ronald Reagan was sworn into presidency. Ronald Reagan is in hell, waiting for heaven to trickle down. Reagan, the same person who ignored the AIDS epidemic and the reason that the super wealthy received enormous tax cuts. Yeah, that guy. As Ronald Reagan put it, freedom is a fragile thing and it's never more than one generation away from extinction. It's not ours by way of inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation. Now, in a rare moment, I will agree with Reagan here. I don't agree with how this is being applied, but I do think it is the responsibility of each generation to continue to fight for these truths we have deemed to be self evident. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Protect our children. Which children? Migrant children? Transgender children? Black children? Brown children? Poor children? Disabled children? Whose children? Secure our God given individual right to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. That's really rich reading that after all these blatantly unconstitutional executive actions. Promise one, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. That was something I was going to say. I feel like harkening back to Reagan and like equating gay people to pedophiles, particularly gay men to pedophiles, it's such a clear appeal to emotion. Who doesn't want to protect children? Nobody wants kids to get hurt. You know how we do that? We create a society in which people are cared for. We create a society in which parents have the resources to be able to live again without worrying about how am I going to pay for this? How am I going to ensure that my family is healthy and safe and has the money it needs, and like this constant state of worry. It isn't through forcing people to have children they don't want or telling kids that they need to be something they aren't or deporting families or locking kids in cages or forcing Christianity down everyone's throat. But what do I know? That is a very good question, Alpha. So, can I ask how you view society as a whole in the sense of do you think a majority of people are well intended or selfish or evil slash disruptive? I say society, but generally I mean the human species, I guess. This is something I've talked about a lot just in my personal life, but I'm trying to think of good way to describe my opinions on this topic because I don't think people at their core are evil or selfish. I don't think humanity, the human species, is inherently selfish. I feel like I hear that a lot. It's just like, this is inevitable. This is just how people are. Like, no, we can see in history and in biology and sociology that we are a communal species. We, as a group of people, survived through communicating with each other and looking out for each other. We lose sight of that in a lot of the way modern history is told. I think we need to remember that history is written by the victors, by the ruling class. They control what we are being taught. A lot of at least what we hear in our country is rhetoric that's very in favor of capitalism and colonialism and things I inherently disagree with, but at their core are very predatory and succeed by the needs of the few outweighing the needs of the many. And so it's easy to see that and become very despondent and think that human nature is like this. People are selfish and only look out for themselves, and I need to do the same. And that's a very individualistic way of viewing humanity. And I think that our society teaches us that on purpose because if you look at like the global south and other more collectivistic cultures, it's not the same. Having people think about that and feel that way directly disrupts the powers that be. It disrupts the status quo of colonialism and capitalism. So, to answer your question, no, I don't think people at their core are evil and disruptive and only looking out for themselves. I think people are scared, and people in a perfect world, I hate using that as an example, but in an ideal situation, people would care for each other. But we've created an environment where all you can do day to day is make sure that you and your people, have gotten from point A to point B, have what they need to survive. If we were supported in looking out for each other, I don't know what society would look like. That isn't to say that there's never a competition. That isn't to say that wars will never happen, people will never fight, that there won't be selfish people. But we are putting selfish, opportunistic people in positions of power and idolizing them and saying, yes, this is the ideal. Of course, we're going to create a society where those values are the norm, the new norm. Historically, if we lived communally, an individual hoarding all the food would have gotten kicked out of the group. It would not have been tolerated. They would have been ostracized because that is not behavior that we would have tolerated. It confounds me that we have created a society that rewards that behavior so much. There are many, many more stories of humanity looking out for each other, of people being good just in their everyday actions. We just don't hear about because that's not abnormal. That's how people are. That's how people tend to be, one. And two, it's disruptive to think about the ways that we can and should look out for each other. I do, as much as I have been ranting and angry and talking about, I don't understand why people don't give a shit about each other. I don't know why people don't have empathy. I think the majority of people do give a shit and don't generally want to see other people suffer. We're just not in a current society where it is incentivized to invest in that kind of behavior. If anything, it is actively discouraged through making people, again, you have to work multiple jobs just to be able to survive. We are competing for limited resources that actually are not limited. Like, hell, think about the amount of spoiled food being thrown away at the end of the night that could be given to someone. Like, the amount of empty houses when we are in a supposed housing crisis. The resources are there, the competition is fabricated. But when you keep people fighting for the same pile of scraps, of course they're going to stop looking out for each other. I have to believe that this is not human nature. This is not how people are at their core. Because if I did believe that, then what's the point? I remember because I was a psychology major when I was in undergrad, but I remember just getting so annoyed with people who subscribed wholeheartedly to the idea of social Darwinism. If anything, I think the concept of survival of the fittest shows even more how humans survived by being communal and looking out for each other, because we are not the fittest. We are meant to look out for each other and communicate. That is what gave us our edge biologically, the ability to communicate and organize and farm and agriculture and innovate and et cetera, et cetera, doing shit together as a group. Also, just on the whole social Darwinism, it to me always felt a little bit like eugenics. It felt very exclusionary of like disabled people in particular. Like it's just like why shouldn't we help each other? I think the social Darwinism bros and like the libertarian bros are probably the same camp, if I hazard to guess. Personal liberty, blah, 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 blah. Like I don't give a shit. It doesn't hurt me that my taxes are making it so some kid can have lunch at school. Why are you against that? I don't understand. Now I'm back to being angry at people. The most important community in each of our lives and life of the nation is the family. I don't know if I agree with that. I'm not saying your family shouldn't be important to you and you shouldn't look out for your family. I'm saying your family has no more value than anyone else's fucking family. The noxious tenets of critical race theory and gender ideology should be exercised from curricula in every public school in the country. I want one of these MAGA bros to come tell me what the hell they think critical race theory and gender ideology is. Because critical race theory is literally just like 101 level. Racism is institutional, white privilege exists, like baseline concepts. We're not even talking about the intersections and complexity of society as a whole. It's just racism has existed and still exists and looks different today than it did 100 years ago. And why is that a bad thing to learn about? In my experience, it's mainly white guilt is the reason why that this is considered to be a problem, frankly. Allowing parents or physicians to reassign the sex of a minor is child abuse and must end. Let's be perfectly clear, that is not happening. Parents deciding to affirm their child's gender identity is not only right and life saving, it is their choice. The way I always viewed it, like, and again, this is me speaking as a cisgender woman, so I'm not the authority here on this. And there are tons of great creators who can explain better than I. But let's say your kid tells you they are trans and they end up changing their mind at some point. One, no one is doing anything irreversible to minors. Like, that's just not happening. There's no evidence of that. And two, what harm are you doing by supporting your children? Your child may not remember forever that they felt that way, but they will remember forever that their parents rejected them and that they did not feel supported. Why would you want to subject your child to that? That is what puts kids in danger, and that is how we lose children. And we know that. We do have evidence of that. And this is stuff I think about all the time because I do not have the luxury of not having to think about it. I personally disagree. I do think it's a choice. I think being able to make that choice for yourself to not have to think about these systemic issues in society, being able to make that choice, to me, it says that these issues aren't directly impacting you, at least to a degree that it is causing a detriment to your life. And that's a privilege, that's a luxury, versus someone who is living this every day. Not to say you need to sit there and marinate on it every single day and be angry and screaming all the time, but it's a weight you carry being aware of these issues very clearly. I am Black, I am queer, I have a mental illness, I have chronic illness, I have people in my family who check all those same boxes, people in my community. I care about my queer and trans friends, and there's so many reasons why this is something I have to think about consistently for my safety and the safety of people around me. Can I ask your thoughts on division between Black people and whether or not there is white privilege? Obviously, many people believe there is. I'm not saying yes or no to it. I've been told by Black people that there is no white privilege because it confuses me when I'm told opposite views in the same topic. I cannot speak for all Black people. We are not a monolith. I think there is very well documented evidence White privilege exists, always has existed, and will not cease to exist without deliberate dismantling. It's impossible as a current society for it to not have existed, at the very least, when you think about how my people got here in the first place. When you think about all of the unpaid labor and generational wealth that creates for people who do not look like me. I'm not saying that everyone has generational wealth, and I'm not saying poor white people in disenfranchised situations do not struggle. It doesn't take away from them being disenfranchised, the fact that white privilege exists. I'm not saying that they have just opportunity raining down on them, because there are other systemic issues that exist. I'm saying the reason they are struggling and the reason they are having these difficulties is not because they are white, and has never been because they are white. And the lack of opportunities they're being afforded does not come from the way they look. The same cannot be said for non white people. There's tons and tons of more eloquent speakers and researchers who have documented the evidence of this and the current evidence of this. And so I definitely encourage you to look into that. I think a lot of people get hung up on that part of white people have it hard too. No one's saying you don't. I'm saying the reason is different. Your parents didn't think about, what should I name you so that your name doesn't get passed over for sounding too black or too ethnic. Wearing your hair in public was never illegal. I'm saying that you weren't lynched and eaten and turned into furniture. And like, if I really want to get dark, like I can get very dark. I don't want to use too much of just history as an example, because I feel like then people say, well, that was then and this is now. The whole point is that the society we have, the structures of it, were built then and continue into now. There's a reason the majority of people incarcerated in this country are black, when we're roughly 13% ish, that might be outdated, of the population. That's so disproportional. But the majority of people on social programs are white. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with social programs, as I've already stated several times. I'm saying that follows a normal distribution that is representative of the demographics of this country. So that's what you should expect to see. There are more white people in the country. So statistically, there should be more white people on social programs, just because more of them exist. That's just the whole statement. The same normal distribution should be seen in other areas, and we don't. It has been interwoven into the fabric of this country, because that is part of what it was founded on. What did I say earlier? Interracial marriage wasn't legalized until the year after my mother was born. My grandma was in segregated spaces. That wasn't very long ago. To think that we have healed and moved on as a nation, now they're making it illegal to even talk about it, and too woke to consider this question in the first place. It's like they don't even want people having this kind of conversation, regardless of if I sway your opinion or not. It's important that we're talking about it. That just shows that we still have a long way to go. Being empathetic and take a step back from my own emotional connection to this topic. I can see why it's uncomfortable to confront. There are plenty of people, white people, who exist in society and they're like, I'm a good person, I care about people, I do my best, I worked hard for everything that I have. And it hurts to hear people say that I have some sort of edge up on everybody. I don't think negatively about this group of people. And again, I worked hard for everything I have. And I see these other people who look like me that are struggling, and that can all be true. And this can be true as well. Just because it exists and people are benefiting from it doesn't mean like you yourself are consenting to it or signing off on it or think it's a good idea or want other people to be disenfranchised. Like it's inherent and insidious and exists whether people want it to or not. Again, I can see why it's uncomfortable. It sucks to find out I'm benefiting from something I think is morally wrong, and not knowing what to do with that information, not knowing how to have space for all of these things being true at the same time. It's hard. It takes effort. That doesn't mean people shouldn't be doing it, though. The answer to that isn't just not talking about it. Well, yeah, the topic of white privilege generally makes me feel kind of uncomfortable, because it makes me feel like I'm being viewed as something I definitely don't feel like I am a part of. And I hear that a lot. It's kind of what I said a minute ago, is it's difficult to do, but it's important. Learn how to have space for both of these things being true. at the same time. You are a good person that cares about people and works hard for what you have. And unfortunately, systemically, people have taken advantage of other people and have said that this group is better than this group. And whether or not I like it, I benefit from that. That's the only way this gets better. Being a good person also means acknowledging this and doing something about it. No one's pointing at you specifically, person, like you are the problem. You are the reason this exists. And you're bad and should fix it. Like, there are some people who directly are perpetrating it, and those are extenuating circumstances and outliers to what I'm saying. But the general everyday person, no one's going, you, it's your fault, you specifically, you, your dad, your granddad, et cetera, et cetera. Like, no, it's bigger than that. But I do take issue generally with people that are like, it doesn't exist, it's not my problem, we shouldn't talk about it, because that is actively allowing it to continue. Like, I'm not saying people aren't allowed to feel uncomfortable. I'm saying it is uncomfortable. A lot of people are uncomfortable all the time. Learn to work through it. Go to therapy. History is hard and shitty, and sometimes people's ancestors did some fucked up shit. And that's hard to have to deal with. Go talk to your therapist about it. Because ignoring it and continuing is allowing it to continue. I feel fortunate that you guys have given me some space to just rant and be loud and angry and political for the past 3.5 hours. Felt good. This is important shit to talk about. So, and who knows? Maybe next week we'll have a normal stream. Maybe it'll be more yelling. We just don't know. Again, thank you for giving me space, and I will see you guys later. Bye. Rambling in front of people or to imaginary people is so much easier than just sitting here looking at a camera and reading a little script I wrote. I'm just going to record until I get through it and I can edit it later. Oh my god, I hope it hasn't been like that this whole time. This is just stupid. Anyway, just think. This feels like the most painfully awkward thing I've ever done. I don't know why this is so difficult. I ramble all the time. I never shut up, and this is so hard. I hate this. So much fun. I'm having so much fun right now. Oh my god. She just doesn't want to stay down. I sure hope I'm done with that now.